Clara Morgan was used to working with broken machines. The scrapyard on the outskirts of Serion 5 had become her home for many years. She spent long hours among twisted metal and piles of discarded Starship parts. The air was thick with dust and the faint smell of burnt circuits. Her hands were always dirty and her clothes were always worn, but she loved it. There was something satisfying about taking what others had thrown away and giving it new life. That evening, the sky was painted in shades of orange and red as the twin suns began to set. Clara was searching for a rare alloy when a movement in the dust caught her attention. At first she thought it was just a stray piece of scrap moving with the wind, but then she saw the shape more clearly. It was a droid, small and battered, its body covered in scratches and burn marks. It moved with difficulty, dragging one arm as if it had been damaged in some long-forgotten battle. Clara knelt down beside the droid and examined it carefully. Its design was old but sophisticated. She could tell it had once been a high-level assistant droid, capable of navigating starships and performing complex repairs. Now it was broken and almost lifeless. She smiled to herself. She had seen worse and fixed them all. She carefully lifted the droid and carried it back to her workshop. The workshop was a small structure made from scavenged metal panels and reinforced glass. Inside it smelled of oil and solder. Machines hummed softly in the background as Clara set the droid on her workbench. Clara worked quickly but methodically. She cleaned the droid's circuits and replaced a few missing wires. She connected a small power source and watched as its eyes flickered weakly. The droid made a low mechanical sound, trying to communicate. Clara activated a translation interface and the voice came through, raspy and broken but understandable. It introduced itself as Ro and claimed to have an important message. It displayed a holographic map showing coordinates that were not on any standard charts. Clara examined the map. It pointed to a location in orbit around a dead moon, a place where no ship had gone in over a century. It was said to be the resting place of an old starship, abandoned during a war between humans and the Elvari. Legends spoke of the Elvari as a mysterious elf-like race with strange powers and living ships that could think and act on their own. Most people dismissed the stories as myths, but Clara was not so sure. Something about the droid's insistence and the pulsing energy signature on the map made her heart race. She had always been curious about old ships, especially ones that had secrets. Clara had a feeling that whatever lay in that orbit was important, maybe more important than anything she had ever worked on. She made the decision quickly. Clara prepared her shuttle for the journey. She packed tools, repair kits, and some food for the long trip. Ro assisted, projecting instructions and warnings when it could. The journey to the coordinates would take several hours, but the thought of discovering something forgotten for generations filled Clara with excitement. The shuttle lifted off from the scrapyard, engines humming softly. The air outside was thick with dust and small debris, but Clara navigated carefully. She had flown in harsher conditions before. As she entered space, the twin suns disappeared behind the horizon, and darkness surrounded the small craft. Stars glittered in the distance, and the emptiness of space felt both lonely and full of promise. Hours passed as Clara followed the map and the droid's guidance. She monitored the shuttle systems, adjusted course, and listened to Ro's low mechanical voice giving updates. Occasionally, she glanced at the map, noting the strange energy patterns that pulsed faintly in the distance. They were growing stronger, indicating that the abandoned ship was close. Finally, the outline of the starship appeared against the backdrop of the dead moon. It was larger than she had imagined, its hull scarred from battles long ago. Strange alien markings covered the surface, glowing faintly. The ship seemed almost alive, as if it were breathing slowly in the vacuum of space. Clara's eyes widened in awe and a little fear. She had never seen anything like it. She carefully maneuvered the shuttle toward a docking bay. The bay doors were partially open, as if inviting her in. Clara took a deep breath and guided the shuttle inside. The interior was dark, with only a few lights flickering. Dust drifted lazily through the air, disturbed by her movements. Clara stepped out of the shuttle with Ro following. The corridors were cold and silent. Old consoles lined the walls, some still blinking faintly. She touched the panels, trying to reactivate systems. The ship was old but not dead. It responded to Ro's interface and Clara's careful touch. Strange symbols appeared on the screens, unfamiliar but beautiful, like patterns drawn from some forgotten language. As she explored, Clara felt a sense of history pressing down on her. The ship had witnessed wars, lost crews, and secrets that had never been told. She walked through halls where helmets lay abandoned, personal items left behind as if the crew had vanished suddenly. Her imagination filled in the gaps, wondering what had happened to those who had sailed this vessel. Ro led her to a chamber sealed with a thick metallic door. The droid's sensors indicated a strong energy source behind it. Clara examined the door. It was old and rusted, but still functional. Using her tools, she worked carefully to unlock the mechanisms. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing a room filled with strange crystal structures. They glowed faintly, humming with energy. Clara's eyes widened in amazement. She had never seen anything like this before. The crystals seemed to respond to her presence, vibrating softly. Ro interfaced with them, attempting to understand their purpose. Clara felt a tingling sensation in her hands as she reached toward one of the smaller crystals. It pulsed warmly, almost alive. She realized that this ship was not just a vessel, but a living entity in some way. The legends of the Elvari's living ships might be true. Clara and Ro continued to explore, moving carefully through the abandoned vessel. Every corner held something new and mysterious. Some rooms contained old equipment that was beyond her comprehension. Other areas had remnants of living quarters, personal effects, and signs of the crew's life on board. It was like stepping into a time capsule of an era long past. Hours passed quickly, though it felt like minutes. Clara was immersed in the ship's mysteries, driven by curiosity and the thrill of discovery. Ro continued to provide guidance, its voice soft and mechanical but filled with a sense of urgency. The energy readings were growing stronger, signaling that they were nearing the heart of the vessel. As Clara moved deeper into the ship, she felt a connection forming with it. It was subtle at first, a whisper of awareness that brushed against her mind. She stopped and looked around, unsure if she was imagining it. Ro confirmed that the ship's core systems were responding to her presence, reacting to her human intuition and ingenuity. Clara's heart pounded in anticipation. She was about to uncover something extraordinary, something that had been hidden for generations. She took a deep breath, steadying herself for whatever lay ahead. The adventure she had always dreamed of was unfolding before her eyes, and she knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Clara Morgan and the droid Ro moved cautiously through the dark corridors of the abandoned starship. The air was heavy and still, filled with the quiet hum of dormant systems. Dust floated in the faint light that seeped through cracks in the hull. Every step Clara took echoed softly, reminding her that the ship had been alone for a long time. The walls were lined with old consoles, some still blinking faintly. Strange alien symbols covered the panels, glowing softly as if waiting to be awakened. Clara ran her fingers over the etchings, fascinated by their smooth curves and the way they seemed to shift slightly when observed. She felt as though the ship was watching her, aware of her presence in a way that defied logic. Ro moved ahead, scanning each corridor and displaying holographic readouts. Its voice was soft and mechanical, explaining what it could understand from the ship's systems. Clara followed closely, feeling a mixture of excitement and unease. She had never encountered a vessel like this. It was alive in a way that ordinary ships were not. The energy reading suggested intelligence, perhaps even consciousness. They entered a large chamber filled with long rows of containment pods. Many were cracked and empty, but some still held faint traces of life or machinery. Clara examined one pod that glowed faintly from within. The crystal walls reflected the light in intricate patterns. She could feel a subtle vibration emanating from it, like a heartbeat. Her hands hovered over the surface, drawn by a force she could not explain. Ro interfaced with the pod, attempting to access its systems. The droid's eyes flickered, processing data rapidly. Clara watched as a holographic display appeared, showing fragments of memories stored within the pod. Faces of the crew appeared briefly, smiling, working, living on the ship before it was abandoned. Clara felt a pang of sadness for these lost lives, frozen in time for centuries. They moved deeper into the ship, navigating through twisting corridors and narrow passages. Some areas were collapsed, forcing Clara to climb over debris and push aside broken equipment. She marveled at the craftsmanship of the ship. Every panel, every wire, every light seemed to have a purpose beyond human understanding. It was both beautiful and intimidating. Finally, they reached the main deck, a vast open space with a high ceiling and a view of the stars through shattered windows. The room was dominated by a large control console at the center. Faded symbols and alien markings covered the surface. Clara approached carefully, running her hands over the panels. She could feel a low hum beneath her fingertips, a hidden energy that pulsed in rhythm with the ship. Ro connected to the console, its circuits intertwining with the ship's systems. The lights flickered and the room seemed to come alive. A soft vibration filled the air, resonating through the floor and walls. Clara stepped back, astonished. The ship was waking, responding to the presence of the droid and perhaps to her as well. As they explored, Clara noticed signs of a great struggle. Burn marks, torn metal, and damaged consoles suggested the ship had been attacked or sabotaged long ago. She imagined the chaos, the fear of the crew as they tried to save their vessel. She could almost hear the echoes of their voices, faint and distant, carried in the energy of the ship. Ro led Clara to a sealed chamber at the rear of the main deck. Its door was reinforced and covered in strange alien runes. The energy readings from the chamber were stronger than anything they had encountered so far. Clara examined the door carefully, noting the complex locking mechanisms. It would take skill and patience to open it. She worked methodically, using her tools to manipulate the locks. Hours passed as she carefully adjusted each mechanism, guided by Ro's calculations. Finally, with a soft hiss, the door began to slide open. Clara and Ro stepped inside, revealing a large room filled with crystal-like structures and a sealed bay. The crystals glowed with a soft inner light, casting dancing patterns on the walls. The energy in the room was overwhelming. Clara felt a tingling sensation in her skin as if the air itself was alive. The crystals seemed to respond to her presence, vibrating and glowing brighter. Ro interfaced with the structures, analyzing their composition and purpose. Clara watched in awe, realizing that this was no ordinary starship. It was a living vessel, connected to powers and technologies far beyond human understanding. At the far end of the chamber, a pod lay sealed and untouched. It emitted a faint pulse like a heartbeat. Clara felt drawn to it, sensing something alive within. Ro displayed warnings, but Clara's curiosity was stronger than caution. She approached the pod, gently brushing away dust and debris. The surface was smooth and cold, but the pulse within seemed warm, almost sentient. Clara realized that they had uncovered something extraordinary. This ship had been hidden away for a reason, protecting a secret that had remained untouched for generations. The pod held a life that had been preserved for centuries, waiting for someone to awaken it. Clara's mind raced with possibilities, the weight of the discovery pressing on her. As she stood there, the ship seemed to breathe around her. Lights flickered in patterns, corridors hummed with energy, and the crystals pulsed in response to her presence. Clara understood that they had entered a world beyond human comprehension, a place where magic and technology intertwined. The adventure she had dreamed of was unfolding, and the ship held the key to mysteries long forgotten. Clara glanced at Ro, whose eyes glowed softly. The droid had led her here, but she realized that it was more than a guide. Ro had been a guardian, waiting for the right person to unlock the secrets of the ship. Clara felt a surge of determination. Whatever lay ahead, she would face it with courage and ingenuity. The ghost ship had awakened, and their journey was only beginning. Clara Morgan felt a deep pulse in the air as she stood in the crystal chamber. The soft glow of the structures bathed the room in shifting colors. She ran her hands over the nearest crystal and felt a vibration ripple through her fingers. It was alive in a way she had never experienced. Ro projected data from the ship, showing energy readings far above normal levels for a vessel of its age. Something extraordinary was happening inside the ship. Ro moved to the main console and began interfacing with the core systems. Sparks of light danced across its interface as it accessed long-dormant programs. Clara watched in awe as the systems flickered to life. The hum in the room grew stronger, more insistent, almost as if the ship were calling to them. Clara felt a shiver run down her spine. She realized the vessel was not merely a machine but a living being, capable of awareness and reaction. Suddenly, the sealed pod at the far end of the chamber shifted. The surface shimmered and began to crack along its edges. Clara stepped back as a low vibration filled the air. The pod slid open slowly, and inside was a figure, humanoid but unlike any human she had ever seen. Pale skin with faint silver markings traced along the arms and face. Eyes closed in slumber. Long hair spread like a river over the pod's floor. The air around the figure seemed to shimmer with latent energy. Ro beeped softly, drawing Clara's attention. The droid had detected life signs within the pod. Clara approached carefully, her hands trembling slightly. She knew that whatever emerged would be important, perhaps more important than anything she had ever encountered. The pulse from the pod intensified, resonating with the crystals around them. Clara could feel the air vibrating in rhythm with the figure's heartbeat. Slowly, the figure stirred. Eyelids lifted to reveal glowing eyes that seemed to pierce the darkness. Clara gasped softly. The being was beautiful, otherworldly, with an aura of calm power that filled the room. It spoke in a low melodic voice that resonated in her mind rather than her ears. Clara realized that the figure was not only conscious but telepathic, capable of communicating without words. "Am Sarilith," the voice whispered. "I have slept for centuries. The ship had kept me safe. My companion waits." Clara felt a chill as the words sank in. There was another presence on the ship, connected to this being, something alive and powerful, perhaps the source of the pulsing energy she had felt since entering the chamber. Ro continued its interface with the ship, uncovering layers of data stored for generations. Logs of battles, star systems, and mysterious encounters filled the holographic displays. Clara absorbed what she could, realizing that the ship had been a vessel of war and defense built by the Elvery. These were the myths she had heard as a child, tales of living ships and dragons bonded to elven warriors. She never believed them fully until now. Sarilith rose from the pod, stretching slowly, her movements graceful and deliberate. Her eyes scanned the room, landing on Clara. "You woke me," she said softly. The tone was not accusatory but curious. Clara felt a rush of relief and anxiety. She had not meant to awaken anyone, only to explore and understand. Now the weight of history and responsibility pressed down on her. Ro projected a holographic image showing the companion Sarilith mentioned. Clara gasped. A large figure was visible within a sealed bay, crystalline and majestic. The shape suggested a dragon, its scales encased in protective crystal that shimmered like glass. The dragon's presence was immense, radiating power even in its dormant state. Clara understood that this creature was connected to the ship, to Sarilith, and to the energy that had filled the chamber since their arrival. Sarilith approached the bay. Her hand hovered above the crystal surface, glowing faintly. She spoke again, her words carrying a resonance that Clara could feel physically. The crystal began to crack and shift, responding to Sarilith's presence. Tiny fragments floated in the air before settling back into the form of the dragon, which began to stir. Wings flexed inside the crystalline cage, claws moved with precision, and eyes blinked open with a glow that matched the ship's pulsing core. Clara stepped back, overwhelmed by the sight. The dragon Eris was magnificent beyond description. Its scales reflected the light of the crystals, creating patterns that danced across the walls. Ro scanned the creature cautiously, noting that its biological systems were intertwined with the ship's energy networks. Clara realized that this was no ordinary dragon. It was a being of immense intelligence and power, linked symbiotically with both Sarilith and the ship. Sarilith turned to Clara. "Your presence is unusual," she said. "Humans rarely find their way here, yet you possess a skill that no machine can replicate. The ship responded to your ingenuity." Clara felt a swell of pride mixed with humility. She had always believed in human capability, but now she faced proof that she was part of something far larger than herself. Eris stretched its wings fully, causing the chamber to shiver with the force of its movement. Clara could feel the power radiating from the dragon. She understood that the awakening of Sarilith and Eris was only the beginning. The ship itself seemed to shift subtly, its corridors humming with life as systems aligned and connected. The living vessel was awake, and it recognized them as allies. Clara and Ro worked to understand the ship's systems alongside Sarilith. Panels lit up, responding to their presence and commands. The combination of human ingenuity, droid precision, and Elvari instinct created a unique synergy. Clara realized that she was not merely an explorer. She was part of a team capable of unlocking the potential of a vessel that had been dormant for centuries. Time seemed to blur as they continued their work. The ship revealed hidden compartments, secret corridors, and energy nodes that pulsed with increasing intensity. Clara marveled at the integration of organic and mechanical systems. The Elvari had created something beyond simple machinery, a network of consciousness, energy, and life intertwined. Every discovery filled her with awe and a sense of responsibility. As the final systems came online, Clara felt a shift in the air. The ship's core energy flowed through the corridors, resonating with the crystals, Serelith, and Eris. It was a moment of awakening, of convergence between human, Elvari, and dragon. Clara understood that they were no longer just visitors. They were participants in the revival of a legend, a story that had been hidden in the void of space for generations. Clara looked at Serelith and Eris, realizing that the journey ahead would be filled with unknown challenges. The awakening of the dragon and the ship marked a turning point. The abandoned vessel was no longer silent or forgotten. It had a purpose, and now Clara was bound to it, her skill and curiosity the key to what came next. The adventure had only just begun, and the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath as the living ship pulsed with renewed life. Clara Morgan felt the weight of history pressing down as she walked through the main deck of the living starship. The glow of the crystals and the hum of the ship's systems filled the corridors with light and energy. Serelith followed closely, her presence calm but powerful, while Eris, the dragon, moved gracefully within the chamber, its scales reflecting the glow of the ship. The air was heavy with the memories of battles fought long ago. Clara could feel the energy left behind by the ship and its crew, like echoes frozen in time. Ro continued to scan the systems, projecting holographic fragments of logs and records. Clara watched as images of starships, explosions, and soldiers flickered before her eyes. The history of the Elvari and humans intertwined, showing alliances, betrayals, and conflicts that had shaped the galaxy. Serelith spoke softly, her voice carrying across the chamber. The war was not as simple as humans believe. Many of our people sought peace, but the living ships, powerful and autonomous, turned against all who came near. The Hollow, a nanovirus of sentient origin, corrupted some of our creations. Vylara, the ship they were on, resisted, and sealed herself and her companion Eris to prevent the spread. Clara listened intently, absorbing the story and feeling the weight of responsibility. The Hollow was dangerous, and it had begun to resurface across nearby systems. Clara's mind raced. She realized the urgency of their mission. The discovery of the ship was not merely a relic of the past, but a potential key to preventing a new catastrophe. She looked at Ro, who projected data on the spread of the Hollow. The readings indicated that the nanovirus had begun to infect derelict vessels and automated mining colonies. The timing was critical. Action was needed quickly to prevent disaster. Serelith moved toward a holographic star map projected from the main console. Her fingers traced paths of fleets and battles, showing where the virus had spread and where the ship had been hidden. Clara followed, realizing the scale of the challenge. The war had left behind hidden dangers, dormant and waiting to awaken. The map revealed sectors with missing reports, anomalies, and traces of battles long forgotten. It was a complex puzzle, one that required both human intuition and Elvari insight. Eris shifted its massive head toward Clara, eyes glowing softly. Clara felt a connection forming with the dragon, sensing its awareness and intelligence. The dragon had been asleep for centuries, yet its mind was sharp, connected to both Serelith and Vylara, the living ship. Clara understood that the bond between dragon and ship was essential to controlling the energy within the vessel and confronting the threats that might arise. Ro continued to access hidden archives within the ship. Logs of engineering, tactical maneuvers, and energy manipulation filled the displays. Clara realized that much of what she was seeing was beyond human technology. The Elvari had created living systems that could think, adapt, and even communicate telepathically with their masters. The integration of biological and mechanical intelligence was unlike anything she had ever encountered. As they delved deeper into the archives, Clara found a section detailing the original battles of Vylara. The ship had faced fleets far larger and more advanced, resisting the corruption of the Hollow. Serelith's voice explained the strategy, how the Elvari combined magic, technology, and intuition to protect their creations. Clara marveled at the ingenuity and foresight of the ancient race. Every decision, every action had been calculated to preserve life and prevent catastrophe. Clara felt a sense of urgency. The Hollow was not just a memory or legend. Its reappearance could threaten countless lives. She and Serelith began to formulate a plan. They would need to awaken the ship fully, repair systems damaged by centuries of dormancy, and prepare Eris for action. Clara's skills as a mechanic were crucial. She understood machines in a way few humans did, and now she was applying her knowledge to a living vessel that combined technology and consciousness. Hours turned into days as they worked. Clara repaired circuits, replaced worn components, and interfaced with the ship's systems under Sarilith's guidance. Ro assisted, projecting calculations and synchronizing with the ship's energy flows. Eris grew stronger, stretching its wings and testing the limits of its power. Clara felt a sense of connection forming between all of them. They were a team, united by circumstance and purpose, ready to confront the challenges that lay ahead. Sarilith led Clara to a hidden chamber containing records of the Hollow's original outbreak. The nanovirus had been designed to corrupt living ships, spreading rapidly through networks and systems. Clara studied the records carefully, understanding the mechanisms and potential weaknesses. She realized that human ingenuity, combined with Elvari knowledge, could create a solution. It would require precision, courage, and the willingness to act quickly. The weight of history and responsibility pressed on Clara. She had always dreamed of adventure, but this was beyond anything she had imagined. The living ship, the dragon, and Sarilith represented a legacy of power and intelligence. Their awakening was a turning point, a chance to prevent a new war and protect the galaxy from an ancient threat. As the ship hummed with life and energy, Clara felt a deep connection to the past and the future. The memories of war, the courage of the Elvari, and the potential for renewal all converged in this moment. She knew that the challenges ahead would test her skills and her resolve, yet she felt ready, supported by allies both human and Elvari, mechanical and living. Clara looked at Sarilith and Eris, sensing the bond that connected them all. The awakening of the ship had revealed not only the history of war, but also the promise of a new beginning. Together, they would face the threats that remained, guided by the lessons of the past and the power of their unique union. The memory of war was no longer just a shadow. It was a guide, showing the way forward as they prepared to confront the challenges that awaited beyond the stars. Clara Morgan stood on the bridge of the living starship, her hands resting on a console that hummed with energy. The glow from the crystals around the chamber bathed the room in shifting patterns of light. Ro hovered beside her, projecting readings and displaying data about the ship's systems. Sarilith stood tall, her silver markings glinting in the light, and Eris, the dragon, flexed its massive wings, causing a ripple of energy that made the walls vibrate gently. The sound of engines and energy cores pulsing in harmony filled the room. Clara felt a thrill in her chest. The ship had awakened fully, responding to their presence and guidance. She knew that the challenges ahead were immense. The fleet of scavenger warlords that had been drawn to the activation signal could arrive at any moment, and the hollow virus lingered in nearby sectors, ready to infect any unprepared vessel. Sarilith moved beside Clara, placing a hand on the console. The ship's consciousness, Violara, pulsed in response, communicating in patterns of light and vibration that Clara could feel through the controls. The synchronization was almost complete. Clara understood that the ship's systems, Sarilith's magic, and Eris's presence formed a single network of power. She marveled at the unity, realizing that the combination of human skill and Elvari design created something unprecedented. The first sensors of approaching ships flickered on. Clara's heart pounded as she observed 3 sleek cruisers emerging from the darkness of space. Their engines glowed red, their hulls scarred from previous battles. They were drawn to the signal, unaware of the living power that awaited them. Clara took a deep breath, preparing herself for the confrontation. This was a test of skill, courage, and the bond between human, Elvari, and dragon. Eris roared, a deep sound that resonated through the ship's hull. The vibration was almost physical, and Clara felt it in her chest. The dragon's presence added a layer of power to the vessel's systems, amplifying the energy flows and strengthening the ship's defenses. Sarilith extended her hands, channeling energy that intertwined with the ship's core and the dragon's aura. Clara felt the surge of power, guiding her movements as she prepared to command the ship's controls. Clara adjusted the ship's targeting systems with precision. Each cannon, shield, and energy conduit responded to her commands. The living ship moved in unison with her, anticipating maneuvers and adjusting to the approaching threat. Clara marveled at the responsiveness, realizing that her skills as a mechanic and pilot had merged seamlessly with the intelligence of Violara, the Elvari consciousness, and Eris the dragon. The first wave of attacks came. Lasers and energy blasts streaked across space, aiming for the living starship. Clara guided the vessel through evasive maneuvers, the ship twisting and turning with a fluid grace that defied human expectation. The shields absorbed much of the energy, while the ship's systems rerouted power to vulnerable areas. Eris took flight within the chamber, its wings generating gusts that amplified the energy flow and added force to the ship's counterattacks. Clara coordinated the response. Cannons fired in calculated bursts, striking the enemy cruisers with precision. Saralith channeled energy through her hands, sending waves that disrupted the attackers' targeting systems. Eris unleashed a stream of energy, scorching the hull of one cruiser and forcing it to retreat. Clara felt the exhilaration of the moment, the unity of their combined power creating an unstoppable force. Ro assisted in monitoring the battlefield, projecting the movements of the enemy, and calculating optimal responses. Clara adjusted the ship's systems based on Ro's data, anticipating attacks and countering them with strategy and ingenuity. The living ship responded instantaneously, shields strengthening where needed, weapons aligning with deadly accuracy, and energy flows stabilizing despite the intensity of combat. As the last cruiser faltered, Clara realized that the battle had been won. The fleet had underestimated the power of the living vessel and its guardians. The ship's systems hummed in relief, crystals glowing softly as energy stabilized. Saralith nodded, her eyes shining with approval and gratitude. Eris roared triumphantly, wings spreading wide as the dragon ascended both within the chamber and in spirit beyond the stars. Clara felt a sense of awe and accomplishment. She had been part of something greater than herself, guiding the living ship through the perils of space and awakening forces long dormant. The union of human skill, Elvari magic, and dragon power had proven unstoppable. She glanced at Ro, whose lights flickered softly, a sign of contentment and recognition of the success. Saralith approached Clara and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You have done more than awaken us," she said. "You have proven the value of human ingenuity. The galaxy will remember this day, and your actions have created a new alliance between beings and technologies that were thought lost." Clara felt warmth and pride at the words, understanding that her life had changed forever. Bailara, the living ship, pulsed with energy that radiated through the corridors. Clara could feel the consciousness of the vessel acknowledging her presence, accepting her as a vital part of its operation. The crystals around the chambers shimmered in patterns that were both beautiful and mesmerizing. The bond they had formed was now complete, a harmony of life, machine, and spirit. Eris landed gently on the main deck, wings folding gracefully. The dragon's eyes met Clara's, and she felt a deep connection, a silent understanding of trust and shared purpose. Together they had faced the unknown, overcome the threat of the scavenger fleet, and awakened the powers of the past to protect the future. Clara knew that the journey was not over. The galaxy held many secrets, many dangers, and countless opportunities for discovery. As they prepared to depart the orbit of the dead moon, Clara looked out at the stars stretching infinitely before them. She felt a sense of anticipation and hope. The living ship, Saralith, Eris, and Ro formed a new team, a force capable of confronting challenges that no human or Elvari alone could face. The adventure that had begun with a single signal in the dust had led to the awakening of legends, and Clara knew that the story of their journey had only just begun.